So, Phil, what do we know about the killers, and is this likely that the casualty numbers will go up even further?
Pretty much, almost certainly. I mean, as we know, that number is at least 50 dead, and that was only revised in the last half hour ago. Up until about a half an hour ago, we were under the impression that only 20 people had been killed. So at least 50 dead and more than 200 injured. Among the dead, a police officer, 200 people injured at least, and as I say, that number could only go up. Now, the shooter has been identified, as you say, Stephen Paddock, a local man. We're going to have more on him in just a moment, but first, let's just rewind and go through the timeline of what happened here. 10 o'clock yesterday evening, or 10:08 p.m., which is the exact time police have given us. That is when this happened. Hundreds and hundreds of people gathered at a country music festival near the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, anybody not familiar with Las Vegas, the Mandalay Bay is one of those huge resorts at the south end of the Strip, a huge gold glistening building. These people were gathered over the road. They were not actually on the premises of the Mandalay Bay. They were across the road at this concert. And they simply watching this concert, and all of a sudden they began being sprayed with bullets, literally sprayed with bullets from across the road. These shots were being fired from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. These people, many of them described what they didn't know what to do. Some of them ran, some of them froze with fear. And then they described a moment of silence before the shooting began. And that is because we understand this man was using an automatic weapon. Some sources have suggested this was a submachine gun, but regardless, the type of weapon that was being used was one where if you hold down the trigger, the bullets keep on coming. So there was a pause while he reloaded the cartridge and the shooting began again. Police quickly identified which room that these shots were being fired from. They realized it was on the 32nd floor. They raced up there. There was an explosion. They burst into the room. He was neutralized initially with some kind of stun grenade, and then he was shot dead by police. And now federal agents are in that room. They are combing for forensics, although we do understand from NBC that this is a room where, quote, several firearms were found. There was initially also a hunt for a companion of his, a lady by the name of Marilu Danley, from the town, as you say, of Mesquite, which is northeast of Las Vegas. It's about 80 miles northeast. We understand that police are now in contact with her, and they have recovered 2 vehicles that they were also searching for in connection with the pair, a Hyundai and a Chrysler. Let me just recap, though. If you're not familiar with this area, Las Vegas is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Even if this had happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, it would have been busy. This happened at 10 o'clock at night, so it was incredibly busy with people. And it's what certain security people may describe as a soft target, in the sense that it's very difficult to police against these kinds of attack. Of course, there are police there because there are billions and billions of dollars worth of cash with the casinos. But in terms of lone wolf attacks like this, very difficult to see when they're going to happen and to combat them. And also, when you check into these hotels, I mean, I've stayed at the Mandalay Bay, so I can tell you from experience, you check in. It's similar to an airport in the sense that you will have hundreds of people at a time in the lobby, all queuing up, lining in for these check-in desks. But the difference here between the hotel and an airport is that there is no security scanning the bags. There is nothing to stop people taking a weapon into a hotel. But as we understand it, he had some kind of automatic weapon. Some sources have said a submachine gun, and that was fired. But as I understand it, this number now, at least 50 dead, 200 injured, making this the grim statistic, making this the worst mass shooting so far in U.S. history.
So this is a deliberate massacre. Do we know the intent of this man, the 64-year-old Stephen Paddock?
Not yet. All we know is that he was a local man. That's the only details police have given us. We know he was 64, and we understand that he came from the town of Mesquite, although that's still to be confirmed. I believe his companion, Marilu Danley, was from Mesquite. Very little details known about him, though. The police are only giving information in small quantities, and that's because this is still, this is still an active situation. Although the shooter is dead, the area is still on complete lockdown. Flights have resumed at the airport, McCarran International, which is very near to the Mandalay Bay. They were paused for a short time. They've now resumed, but this is still a very active situation. In fact, I was listening to one reporter who's on the ground there who was saying, this is the first time in living memory that the Las Vegas Strip has been closed. Normally it is teeming with people. But at the moment, it is incredibly quiet in certain areas because the roads are closed off. So the shooter is now neutralized. He is dead. But as for any other information, that is going to come out in the next few hours as police give us more. They're still, at the moment, as you can imagine, trying to comprehend what has happened. And as this number of deaths continues to rise, the information is coming out in small quantities.
And we will keep a close watch on that. Thank you so much, Phil.